Hello,
Hey, how are you?
fine, thank you. What about you? Can you hear me?
Me too, thank you. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, it's nice to meet you. My name is Clary. What's your name?
My name is Shahriyar. Nice to meet you too.
Okay, and where are you from?
I am from Azerbaijan. Have you heard about it
Oh,
before?
I have, but I have never had a student from there.
Yes, yeah. There,
Okay, is it a nice country?
yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah?
Even though even though it's very little or in terms of its size, but
Hmm.
there are a lot of interesting things that you can discover in my country.
Nice. What's your country famous for?
Uh, Actually, I think our location,
Okay.
because we located between the Asia and Europe, and we
Hmm.
can also receive both culture from Europe and
Ah, you're affected by both sides of
yes,
the land, right?
yes,
Asia and Europe.
yes,
Okay, nice. So you have been influenced by both cultures?
yes, yes. You are
Okay,
right.
nice.
Uh,
And what
because
aspects of both cultures do you have?
for example, we are Muslim country,
Mhm.
but at the same time we are international country. We have international opinions or international knowledge. So, for example, in my country, people are free in terms of their clothes. So,
Their clothing?
yes, the women are not obliged to wear like the Islamic rules. So everyone can live such a West cultures.
Oh, okay. So even though
But
you're Muslim, you don't have to wear that clothing?
yes, especially you know that Muslim women wear uncover
Women.
women,
Hmm.
yes, wear uncover clothes,
Hmm.
but majority of our women just wear as a West countries, such uh, free. They are very free
Okay,
about their
nice.
clothes. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's interesting. Okay. So I wanted to mention that one woman and then two women. Yeah?
yeah, I know. Actually, I know, but you know, during the speaking, you can't uh, pay attention, this kind of things.
Of course. Yeah, I think the way to correct these mistakes, that even though you're sure of that they are mistakes, you still keep making them and speaking, is to correct them. So tell me if you don't want me to correct them, but I think it's helpful so that you can realize that they're mistakes, right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's not problem. Don't worry about it. Uh,
Okay?
you know, but this is a simple. How can I say simple rule? Man and plural forms man, woman and
Mm-hmm.
woman. I know it, but
Mm-hmm.
you know sometimes you forget about it during the speaking time.
Of course. Yeah, so it's important to remind you whenever you say it wrong so that you can be
Yeah,
like, oh, yeah,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yes, yes. My
Okay.
problem, my problem, my major problem is the tense. So especially the uh, past simple and the present perfect or past perfect, like that.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you say, for example, I learn English language for 2 years, or the correct one, I have been learning English language for
Yeah,
two
it's the
years, for
present
example.
perfect continuous. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but sometimes I can use it properly, but sometimes I can't because I don't know, because
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of tense, there are a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay,
so
maybe.
you
Mhm.
confuse.
Yeah, I understand. It is a little confusing, especially the present perfect. It's a little hard to know when to use it. But there's one hint that I think is very helpful for learners, and it's that if you're saying when something happened in the past, for example, 3 years ago, last week, yesterday, if you're saying the exact time when something happened in the past, we don't use the present perfect. It has to be the simple past. Yeah.
So,
for
for example, past perfect, if something happened in the past and it is continuing still, yes, and we use the past perfect, yes, or present perfect. I don't know.
Okay, so if it's something that has been happening, so it happened in the past and it's happening now, we use the present perfect continuous, especially if we say for how long we did something. For example, if you want to say, I studied English for 3 years, but now you're still learning English, you have to use the present perfect continuous, because otherwise the person will think it happened in the past and it's in the past, but you're still learning. So it's important to say learning, right? So I have been learning English for 3 years.
So can I say like that, for example, for instance, the humankind has been affecting the environment since they are created, like that.
Okay. Okay.
That's true or not? That's true. Is that true or?
Okay, so humankind has been affecting the environment since they were created?
Yes, yes.
Yeah? Yes, definitely, because it was created in the past and it lasts until now, right?
And so, their affection is continuing process.
Exactly.
They affect the environment still. And
yes, exactly.
It also continues in the future.
Well, we're not focusing on the future, right? We're focusing on the present now at this exact moment. When we focus on the past, present, and future, it's way easier to just use the simple present, right? Humankind affects the environment in the past, in the present, in the future, in general, always.
But when we can use past perfect, had, for example.
Okay. The past perfect?
Yes, past perfect.
Okay, the past perfect is a little more complicated. You have to be very sure and really understand the present perfect to be able to understand the past perfect. When we talk about the present perfect, for example, we're talking about an experience that we have. For example, if we say, I traveled by plane, okay, I traveled to Europe by plane. The fact that I traveled is not important. What's important is that I went by plane or that I went to Europe. That's more important information than the verb itself. So that's why we use the simple past. But if our focus is the action and our experience of doing this action in the past, no matter the rest of the information, we say, I have traveled before. That's all that matters, right? The fact that I traveled. I have traveled. So that's what the simple present is, the present perfect is for. Now, when it's the past, is someone that had this experience, the present perfect, in the past. So, by the time I graduated, I had traveled to Europe. So, we're talking about this person, me in the present, is talking about me in the past, having an experience in the past. So it's a little complicated. What I usually do is I have a class, a grammar class, where we review one grammar point with the present perfect. And once you fully understand the present perfect, we can move on to the present perfect continuous and the past perfect. which are variations of the present perfect.
So my brain stopped.
It's too much. That's why we have to go step by step.
So, you know, I have always preferred to learn English language with the Grammarly automatically. So I talk with the native speakers over and over, and the grammar knowledge when I speak in English language, the grammar rules automatically.
You naturally understand them, right?
So so as my native language, for example, you know, there are a lot of examples that all the teachers say that when you were child, so you no one teach you about the grammar, but you can speak the language with perfect grammar, without any knowledge, without any teaching, because you imitate your parents and the other people around you. And so, and that's why I also want to learn language like this, not not just learning grammar.
Okay, I agree. I think you're right.
So, how do you think it is possible in this age or not?
I think so. I think the only problem is that most people tend to be a little impatient when it comes to learning a language, because they compare it to learning other things. They think, I want to learn history, I read all these books, and then I know history. It's not that complicated. You can learn it. But when it comes to a language, you truly need to give it a lot of time. As you might have noticed, a child doesn't speak correctly using the correct or accurate words and the correct grammar until they're maybe 7 or 8. It takes them many years of only learning one language 100% of the time and having their brains empty of any other languages. So they only have to learn one. So being an adult, it's a little more difficult because you already have a language that's easier for your brain. It's not going to want to learn something more difficult. It's going to be like, oh, just give me a translation to my native language and it's easier for me. So it is a little more complicated. And it does take some time, but if you want to learn that way, it's 100% possible. And that's how I learned English, actually.
Yeah, I prefer, but currently, my major concern is that to be fluent. So even though I can't speak, and it doesn't matter speak with perfect grammar. If I speak with basic grammar, it is sufficient for me. But fluent is much more important than the grammar right now. I want to speak fast. I want to speak, you know,
at a natural pace.
I want to think as a native speaker. So in that way, I just want to be fluent. Yes. The other things is not important right now for me. It also includes listening and also writing or reading.
Okay,
right
I
now,
understand.
So you know, my profession, my occupation is geography teacher. So I want to teach my subject in an English language.
Okay.
So you know, I want to explain any topics fluently in front of my children, in front of my people.
Okay, so, I understand. Yeah. Well, there's many methods I can help you with that if you want. First of all, you need to be very exposed to the language. As you said, you want to learn it naturally, like a native speaker does. And the way to do that is to be exposed to it. You have to listen to it. You have to read it. You have to try to understand it, not for the sake of learning English, but because things are in English. So for example, if you're interested in a certain topic, history, for example, you can watch documentaries, you can watch series, you can watch videos on YouTube, all in English. And you're just doing it because you have an interest in it, not because you want to learn the language. And that way, your brain will start to think in English, because most of the words that you're learning, because you will be learning new terms, are directly in English. It's not a translation. So you have to remove your native language from your brain as you learn.
Yeah, you are right. I actually follow these rules because for the first time, I just, since I have been learning English language, so I try to isolate myself from my native language and to focus on the English language. For example, I watch TV series or TV shows and other movies, and also read a lot of news from the BBC sources. And also I download different kind of applications, podcasts that can help me improve my listening skills. So, and I also read a lot of topics, reading topics from the British Councils, from about the teenagers sort. You know, there are different sections. For example, for the teenagers or for the adults, for the children. I actually read all of them with different levels. Intermediate, I started intermediate and continue to the advanced level. So in that way, I just want to isolate myself from my native language and focus on the English language, because, you know, as you say, each nation have their own culture, and this culture affects their language as well. So without learning the nation's culture, you can't speak fluent with their language. So it's important.
Yeah,
so, you know,
definitely.
for example, yes. For example, if you want to learn my language, you should be familiar with my culture, because learning words, it is not enough to speak the other language.
No, definitely not. I agree. And do you only practice your speaking on Cambly, or do you practice some other way?
So I practice the other skills by myself from different sources on the internet. For example, I always read a lot of news and read a lot of geography books in English language. So I have a lot of information about the geography in English language. So I think it wouldn't be a problem for me to talk any topics about the geography. So, but speaking is complicated, because I have no opportunity to talk each time with the native speakers, because I surrounded the people who speak my native language, and my only opportunity to improve my speaking skills just Cambly and and me, because I also sometimes speak by myself.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's no need to talk to someone if all that matters is to speak out loud and try to practice pronouncing certain words and saying things out loud. You don't need another person to do that, right? You don't really need any feedback. You just need to speak and say a lot of things. So talking to yourself is a really good option. I'll send you a link right now of different English conversation topics, which I usually use with my students for conversation practice. But you can also do it alone. I'll send you the link now. You can go into any of these topics, and there's several questions in each topic that you can answer. And for example, You read the question, you think of your answer, and you explain it. If you feel a little awkward not telling it to anyone, you can just record yourself, for example, and then listen to it and try to listen for your for your mistakes. Or if you don't want to, you can just not record yourself and just say it. But as long as you're talking, you're practicing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Thank you. But the problem is that it's very burning process to talk by yourself. But I will just try. And I also get a IELTS resource. Got IELTS resource for the speaking sections. As you know, there are a lot of questions about different topics, and sometimes I read some topics, different topics, and try to talk around these topics. So I know that in the future I will obliged. I will be obliged.
You will be forced.
I will be forced, yes, to get IELTS certificate.
Okay. Yeah. You can even start with the IELTS questions then. Have you done that already?
So actually right now I don't want IELTS certificate because preparing IELTS is also very boring, and to get a high score IELTS level is not prove that you can speak this language very well.
100%. I agree with you.
So yes, and I know that, for example, if the native speakers go to the exams and they can't, for example, they can't get score, for example, 8.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
There are some non-native speakers and they can get 8 score, and it's very interesting.
I agree 100%. I think the IELTS exam is just a way of getting a certification, and it's very easy for companies and organizations to require this this title because it's easy. It's a qualification. You have this, okay, hired. So it's easy. They don't have to make an effort for it, but it is not a good way to test someone's knowledge. I agree. But at the same time, I think the speaking part is okay. I think the listening mostly is not a good way to test someone's knowledge. But the speaking is, because you do have to talk, for example, at the beginning, you have to talk about things that you're comfortable talking about. Your family, your hometown, the foods that are traditional to your country. And those are topics that we talk about on a daily basis. And if you can speak about this, it means you have at least a good beginner level of English, right? If you can't talk about this, you can't speak English. But if you can only talk about that, it means you're barely a beginner, because you need to be able to speak about more complex ideas to be fluent. So that's what the speaking test is about. It gets harder and the topics get more complex. And I think the speaking test is actually good. So I just sent you a link just in case you want to check it out, to questions that you can answer in the first part of the IELTS speaking test, which I think is also useful if you want to talk. It's like the other link I sent you, and at least that is a topic that you will need in the future, right?
Yes. So if you want to get high score from the IELTS exams, you should be very tactful. You can manage your time. For example, you should be very how can I say, compliant, or
compliant
when you speak.
Yeah.
No, when you want, for example, they say that, for example, talk about these topics, or they ask you a question and you can't get out from the topic. You should talk. You have to talk exactly about this topic. If you get out from these topics and talk about something different things, then they can. It's minus for you. No, minus for you, and and they remove one of your score about the speakings, even though you speak very fluently.
Yeah, I know. I think those rules about the exam are really dumb. Like, for example, if they ask you what is the answer to this question in 2 words, and you say a dress made of silk instead of a silk dress, it counts as a wrong answer, even though the answer is right. And it should be the opposite, right? If you're able to say something in a different way, shouldn't that mean that you know how to say things in many different grammatical ways? I don't know. I disagree with the way that the exam is made as well.
Mhm. Yes, yes, that's true. That's
Mhm.
so. I also, uh, when I speak in English language, I also want not to hesitate while speaking English language, especially in high advanced topics. For example, about the politics or about something new technology, for example, about scientific topics, because I love to talk around these topics, and I also prefer to watch TED Talks. Do you know TED Talks?
Mhm.
And so there are a lot of things, videos that you can get a lot of information from them in terms of scientists, and they also can inspire you
Mhm.
different kind of things.
Mhm.
So when they talk, I realize that their speech is so beautiful, and I also want to speak like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think TED Talks are a really good source to learn English from because they talk about varied topics. You can learn a lot of vocabulary that way. And it's really interesting as well. It's something that you will like to do. And yeah, have you tried the shadow method, for example?
Shadow method.
Yeah, the shadow method is when you hear something said by a native speaker, whether it's in a movie, a video, a listening audio, anything, and you hear it and you try to say it back the exact same way as the native speaker said it, with their accent, with their pronunciation, just exactly the same way as they said it. Have you tried that?
Yeah, sometimes. For example, when I come across uh, something different things that I am not familiar with this phrasal verbs or with this sentences, I try to imitate the native speakers or actors or the spokesman like that. For example, I learned recently I learned about supposed to be, for example. Am I supposed to be like that?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
this sentence is one of my favorite sentences because it's very different. It's very different.
You
And
don't have that sentence or that uh, word in your language?
no, in my language, this sentence is exists in my language, but
Oh.
you can't say it just with the words. It's very different. Suppose, am I supposed to do like, or am I supposed to be like that? This is very interesting sentence
Okay.
for me.
Hmm.
Maybe it's weird for you, but
Yeah, I think
it's
it's very
interesting for me.
interesting. Yeah, it is. It is. Okay, so how did you learn this? From hearing someone say it?
I watched the TV series, one of the TV series, which is named Wolf, Teenage Wolf, actually.
Okay.
There was a teenage, and he can convert into the Wolfman.
Ah, Teen Wolf.
Uh, yes, yes, this
I
series.
love Teen Wolf.
And he said, "What am I supposed to do, or what do I supposed to do like that?" And
Mhm.
for the first time, I can get the exactly meaning of these sentences.
Nice. Yeah, that's really useful to learn from TV shows, right? And I think you will never forget that because you find it interesting. Okay, the time is up for today, but it was nice to
Yeah.
meet you and have a nice day.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you very much. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.